Hey guys, what's up? It's Alex here. Today we are here with my preview of the German Grand Prix this weekend. As I'm recording this, no sort of updates on who's driving this weekend. I'm recording this on the Monday, so hopefully you guys understand. I don't know whether Haryanto, Van Dorn or maybe someone else is racing for Manor this weekend. I'm actually at work on Wednesday, so I actually just can't get around to recording this basically. So hopefully you guys understand. But anyway, today's video, we're going to run through what could happen, because the last time this event took place was in 2014. That time round, Nico Rosberg got the victory, but let's be honest, Rosberg hasn't had the best of form recently. You know, he's lost out to Hamilton in quite a few of the last few races. I think since the Spanish Grand Prix, Rosberg still scored less points than Verstappen, which is crazy. So obviously Hamilton's won 5 of the last 6 Grand Prix, and that one that he didn't win was Europe, where Rosberg won. But Rosberg hasn't been very consistent so far. In the last sort of 7 or 8 races, he hasn't been that consistent, and that's been his downfall, which means he's now 6 points behind Lewis Hamilton at the top of the championship. Daniel Ricciardo is about 71 points back from Rosberg, so basically it has now turned into sort of a 2-horse race for the championship. I know we all guessed it really at the first place, but I think the Red Bulls and Ferraris, even if they came on really strong in the second half of the season, just a bit too far back to challenge. So we're just going to obviously completely wipe out that for any sort of chance. But 2016, the German Grand Prix, obviously you had Hockenheim. I do honestly feel this is one of my favourite tracks, and for racing as well, it always produces some decent races because it's quite fast, and there's definitely lots of opportunities to overtake, or a couple of overtakes opportunities. Down into turn 1 is possible if you can get in a good enough run. Then turn 2 is also pretty decent as well. And I'm not too sure what turn it is, but the hairpin after the long straight, that's pretty good as well. And I remember Ricciardo putting up some good moves on the couple of corners after the hairpin. Sorry, I really don't know the corner names, but there is a decent amount of places to overtake on this track. And if I remember correctly, 2014 was a pretty bad race for Lewis Hamilton. I know it's the home race for Rosberg, but I'm thinking it probably won't really make much of a difference this time because, let's be honest, Hamilton's got a really good form, obviously. 5 wins in 6, I think it is. And, who can stop him? It looks like nobody at the moment, really. He's in a really, really good job. Looked imperious in Hungary as soon as he got into the lead of the race. And what do you guys think? Do you think Hamilton's going to end up being the champion this year? I mean, we're halfway through the season now at this point, so it's interesting to know what you guys thought, obviously, at the start of the season in comparison to now. It still is a 2-horse race between Hamilton and Rosberg, but I definitely feel Hamilton has had the upper advantage in the last couple of races at least. As for the teams that are going to do well this weekend, I definitely think Mercedes are going to be strong here. Obviously, it's a fast track where you need a good engine and just a good overall setup with a sort of lower downforce, and I think that's where Mercedes will come into their own, and I think this will be a really decent track for them. Obviously, I thought that Hungary was going to be a lot closer than it actually was. I did think Red Bull might have a chance of a victory there. That's why I predicted Verstappen, and that did not end up happening. But in terms of Germany, I think it's a lot more likely it's going to be dominated. Look at this save, by the way, guys. I don't know how on earth that happened, but look at that save in the Project Cars career mode in the background. Anyway, what was I talking about? I think this is definitely going to be a race dominated by the Mercedes cars. I do think we're going to see the Ferrari possibly be back ahead of the Red Bull for this weekend. Red Bull, I don't know whether they've completely sorted out their engine. Obviously, they're still technically running a Renault-powered engine, obviously just branded as Tag Heuer. So I do think that Red Bull might struggle this weekend, but every time I've said that, they've ended up having a good race. So who knows what's going to happen. Red Bull have been definitely improving over the last couple of races. They said they wanted to be ahead of Ferrari, but in my opinion, they're probably already ahead of them in most tracks. So it's just a matter of time before they're ahead of them in every single track we go to. But in general, I do think Mercedes will end up probably being the fastest car. Ferrari might end up being the second. I do think we might see a bit of a renaissance for Williams. I think this weekend, obviously, they've had a pretty bad year in general. They've had one podium, haven't they? I think Bottas has gotten a podium once. But in terms of that, they've had, except from that, they haven't exactly had a great year. So maybe this could be another race that Williams could have capitalise on. Obviously, we get ahead to a couple of tracks after the mid-season break, like Spa and Monza, where I do think Williams might be quite good as well. But Germany, another fast track where they probably will have a decent chance at some points. And Force India as well, I suppose I should mention them. Could Perez or Hulkenberg get on the podium once again? I might throw it out there as a wild bet there, but I'm not going to put any actual bets on it. I'm just throwing it out there. It could be a good track for Force India. Obviously, they know they've got a good power plant in there, and their car's pretty good in these sort of style of tracks. So, in my opinion, Force India could be the team to watch this weekend. no doubt, I've just said that, they're going to end up being like 20th and 18th or something like that. So, what do you guys think? I mean, honestly, Mercedes with Hamilton or Rosberg, that's the big decision you've got to make every weekend now. It's sort of like flipping a coin, you don't really know, but more recent times it's been Hamilton more than Rosberg. But then, you know, at the start of the season it was completely the other way around, where it always ended up landed on Rosberg. But in my opinion, I think Hamilton probably will have enough this weekend to overcome Rosberg. I know it is Rosberg's home track, and obviously that does count for a lot. Obviously, Hamilton had that home momentum and that home sort of, you know, when you hear the crowd screaming and shouting for you, that obviously, I don't know. As a, you know, as an F1 driver, obviously I don't know what they, you know, go through, but I'm assuming it does give you a lot of sort of momentum, a lot of enthusiasm to go out there and absolutely nail it, do 100%. And I think that even though Rosberg will have that, I think Hamilton's on such good form recently, I think he's going to have this one in the bag. As for the completion of the podium, well, obviously I'm going to say Rosberg in second place there, but third place is really up there. In my opinion, Raikkonen's really turned it up recently. That Hungarian race was very, very good. But then Vettel, he's been a bit more he's been consistent in there as well, but he hasn't really picked up that major result, you know, since the first couple of races of the season where he was all right. But it's tough. What do I go for? Do I go for a Ferrari? Do I go for a Red Bull? Maybe even a Force India. That's what I'm thinking in there, that Force India could do a surprise. But let's be honest, Force India probably only have a realistic chance of a podium if something goes wrong with one of the front cars, which it normally does, honestly. When I say a podium, it ends up being that one. So who knows what's going to happen. But I suppose I'll probably have to go for Sebastian Vettel. Obviously, he's got that home sort of enthusiasm as well. I do think he'll have a good one. I can't. When was the last time Vettel won around the Hungaroring? Sorry, not the Hungaroring. Won around the Hockenheim ring. I honestly don't know. Has he won around there? I'm sure some Vettel fans can leave a comment down below on whether he has or not. But I don't know. As Vettel, I think the German Grand Prix eluded him for a long time, but I think he did end up doing it. But I just can't remember what year, to be perfectly honest. But nonetheless, we've talked about some of the top teams, but what could happen down the back of the grid? Obviously, Renault with Julian Palmer, really upset for him in the Hungarian Grand Prix. He looked so good for some points, and then he ended up spinning and dropped down to 12th place, I think, at the end there. So that was really, really unfortunate for him. Obviously, I really hope they can get a couple of points for the end of the season. It's something that's been talked about over the last couple of days. Apparently, Renault might be wanting Ocon in that seat alongside Van Dorn for next season. So, you know, Renault could have all change for next year, even though we're sort of expecting Magnussen to change. Obviously, they made Maldonado get out of that seat for Magnussen, so we're all sort of thinking that Renault loved him. But you know, neither of them have had really amazing results this year. I know the car's been terrible, so we really can't judge them. I think Palmer, honestly, that could have been the best sort of performance, you could say, for Renault this whole season. I know Kevin Magnussen's got a couple of points, but that performance from Palmer on a track, in my opinion, I really didn't think they'd do very well on, because obviously they needed high downforce, and I don't think Renault have much downforce at the moment. But talking about the German Grand Prix, who knows whether it could be a step up for Renault. Obviously, it's going to be a bit of a faster track, which definitely will suit them a bit better than the Hungaroring, where you need a lot of downforce, which at the moment they just don't have. Obviously, they need that power as well, but which they probably don't have in abundance, where obviously Mercedes really are king at the moment and have been king for a couple of years now. Renault probably still are lagging behind a bit, but I honestly don't know. What's the situation, guys? What do you think? That is the Renault better than the Ferrari engine? Because the Ferrari engine, it's really tough to tell at the moment. It's not been as good as it was last year by the looks of it. Just, you know, looking at it as it is, in my opinion, it doesn't look quite as good as last year's. But I do think maybe Renault, I really hope that Palmer gets a couple of points. I mean, this could be a good weekend for them to do, obviously, after a really disappointing one last time out. But I can't really think of many other teams that might surprise, obviously. Down the back of the field, Toro Rosso, I don't really feel that they might spring much of a surprise. Maybe McLaren, they've really been stepping up recently. I was gutted for Jenson Button as well in the Hungary race, where obviously he had an issue, then like a penalty, and he had to drive through the pits, and it just all went downhill. And I really hope that Button can get on form. I mean, I do think that Honda engine is actually a lot better now, and obviously they do think that they've got the third best chassis on the grid behind the Mercedes and the Red Bull. So who knows, what's going to happen, but I don't think particularly it's a chassis track. I mean, there is a little squiggly part in Sector 2, but apart from that, I think it's more of an engine circuit, the Hockenheim Ring. I mean, maybe if we looked at the Nürburgring, maybe that would be a track that would suit like the Red Bulls, maybe suit the Hondas, but the Hockenheim Ring is definitely the opposite, really, where you need that power, which they just simply don't have. So what do you guys think? For my top 5, as I said, I'm going to go with the Hamilton win with Rosberg in second. Probably third place, go with Sebastian Vettel. Fourth place, I go with Ricciardo. And a fifth place for Kimi Räikkönen. Let's be honest, it's not going to end like that. It's probably going to be a Daniel Kvyat win. Yes, with Max Chilton in second and Ide in third. It's going to happen, guys. Just believe. If you enjoyed this video, hopefully you enjoyed what on your screen right now. That's F1 2016 gameplay from the Hungaroring. On board looks really, really good. Also, if you haven't left a like on the video, I'd really appreciate that as well. It really does help me out grow the channel. Also, subscribe if you haven't already. That is linked as a sort of a little button down below if you want to do that. That would be really appreciated. My Twitter and many other social links are linked in the description if you want to keep up to date with all of the new videos. Once again, I really appreciate you guys helping and supporting the channel. It's been the best few months on YouTube for me in terms of enjoyment in a very long time, so I really appreciate your guys' support. That's really helped me through it. So thank you for watching. Once again, I'll see you soon for more F1, MotoGP, and maybe even more. Goodbye.